Hello, it's Rebecca, and we're at the end of 2015. It's quite sad. This year's gone very, very quickly. And as most of you know, or you should know, I have been doing the 2015 reading challenge that was started by Pop Sugar, and I will put a link down below in the description to explain what the challenge was about, but it was basically to read 52 books over the year of 2015. And I took on this challenge to get me to read things outside of my normal little, I wouldn't say comfort zone, but to get me reading things that I possibly wouldn't normally read. And it certainly did that. However, I didn't complete the challenge. The challenge was to read 52 books, which is a book a week, really. And I managed 41. Now, that's nothing to be ashamed about because I'm a very slow reader and sometimes I can go for long periods without reading. So this challenge certainly gave me the encouragement to keep reading and to check off a list. And here's my list. And yeah, there's still quite a few that I didn't manage. But I am so pleased that I managed to read 41 books, considering one of those books was over 500 pages, and I am terrified of long books. I tend to read books about 200 pages, and anything more than that I just can't cope with. So, like I say, I read 41. Certainly not to be sniffed at. So the books from the challenge that I didn't get around to reading were a book by a female author, although technically I did read a lot of books written by females, but I didn't choose a specific one for that category. A Pulitzer Prize winning book. A book you were supposed to read in school but didn't. A book with antonyms in the title. A book that came out the year you were born. A book with bad reviews. One of the categories was a trilogy, so obviously that's 3 books. I managed to read 2 books from a trilogy, so the third one I've not read, but I will be reading it next year. A book with a love triangle. A book you own but have never read. A banned book, and a book you started but never finished. So it's only a handful of books that I didn't manage to read for this challenge. But like I say, I'm certainly pleased with what I read. Now, I read a really odd array of books this year, and I will link you down below to all the videos for the books that I read. Some I absolutely loved, some I absolutely hated, and others I can take or leave. So the books that I absolutely loved, starting off with Fluffy by Simone Lear, a really cute, adorable graphic novel about the most gorgeous little rabbit. Seriously, read it, it's absolutely amazing. 101 Dalmatians by Dodie Smith. Seriously, people need to read books that were made into films just to realise how amazing the books are and how much the films detract from such a great story. Absolutely loved that one. Junior by Macaulay Culkin. Strange book, strange boy, but so thoroughly enjoyable. Just so enjoyable. Read it even if you're not a fan of Macaulay Culkin. It's just so peculiar and so great. Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. Again, these are books that I can't even really explain it. It's so well written, such a beautiful story. It's not that long, which I like, because, like I said earlier, big books scare me. But an absolutely brilliant book. Marley and Me by John Grogan. Oh my goodness, I have not cried so much reading a book. But so worth it. Again, I've seen the film, but the book is just a million times better. And so, oh, if you love dogs, read it, but obviously it's sad, but really, really good. The Strange Library by, now you know I'm not very good with non-English names, Haruki Murakami. Small book, strange, as the title suggests, but one that's really kind of stuck in my brain box considering I work in a library and I'm always like looking over my shoulder, wondering if any strange things are going on there that went on in this book. Day 4 by Sarah Lotz. Can this woman write a bad book? The answer is no. Absolutely outstanding. Speechless. Genuinely speechless with that book. So, so good. House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. That was the book that was over 500 pages, and I never thought I'd manage to get through it. But that is freaky. It's about a house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Yeah. That's certainly one to read. I couldn't explain what it's about properly. It needs to be read. But so good. So good. Read it. The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. That's one that I've been wanting to read for a long time, and I'm glad I got around to doing it. Leaves you cold. It leaves you absolutely cold. But again, so glad I read it. So worth reading. So good. If you don't know the story, you really should. Just read it. The Moaning of Life by Carl Pilkington. I'd never watched him on television, but reading the book just made me laugh so much. It's so nice to read something by somebody who's not afraid of political incorrectness or just speaking their mind. And so many of us are frightened of saying things in case we offend people, but he just speaks his mind, and it is so funny. It's so raw and natural, and oh, it's amazing. Really funny book. So if you want to laugh, read that one. The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilmore. Such a tiny book. It can't even really be called a book. It's more of a short story. It's about 30 pages long, but it's about depression and suffering with depression and suffering with the thoughts that go on inside your head when you have depression. And for someone who suffers with depression, it really hit the nail on the head, and in so few pages said so much. And I think that's a book that should be read by anyone who is suffering with depression or anyone who knows somebody who suffers with it, because it puts into words a lot of things that sometimes we can't put into words because we don't have the words. So that was an absolutely beautiful read. So those are the books that really stood out for me and I absolutely loved and would totally recommend. And a few that really didn't. I read my very first Mills and Boon for this challenge. It's called The Italian's Christmas Miracle by Lucy Gordon. I know Mills and Boon are super popular, but I didn't get it. It was so badly written. The story was terrible. The characters were awful. I can't say one positive thing about that book. So bad. Intrusion by Ken MacLeod. That book, from the blurb, sounded like it was going to be amazing. It was about a woman's right to choose whether or not to take a tablet that would guarantee that her unborn baby would be born without birth defects. And I thought it was going to be a really strong story about how women are in control of their own bodies and they have the right to choose whether or not to take this tablet. And it just ended up being a really blah story without much substance. So disappointed, because the blurb made it sound outstanding and something that I would really enjoy, because it was kind of a futuristic, dystopian themed thing. And it wasn't. It was really dull. The Face on the Milk Carton by Caroline B. Cooney. Again, another one from the blurb that really sucked me in. It was about a young girl at high school who saw a picture of a missing child on the side of a milk carton. That's something they do in America. And she recognised the young girl as herself. And she wanted to find out whether or not she'd been kidnapped, whether or not her parents were her real parents. And again, I thought that would be a really gripping, thrilling story. Dull, badly written, boring. Sadly. And that was the beginning of a series, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, I do want to find out what's happening to this girl. And I couldn't even bring myself to read anything more. That one book just, it was so badly written that it just ruined everything else after that for me. I couldn't even try. The Distance by Helen Giltrow. I have never in my life read anything as bad as that. There have been books that have been badly written, but the story has been interesting, or books with a bit of a dull story, but the writing is so beautiful that you can forgive the lack of story. This had no story and was badly written. It made no sense. It wasn't coherent. It didn't flow. It felt like it had come halfway through a series and you needed to know a lot that had gone on before, but nothing was being told about that. But you'd be told about people you didn't know anything about and situations that had happened that you didn't know anything about. And it just made no sense. And I'm so angry because this woman shares my surname. And I just think I don't want people associating me with her because it was so badly written. Just so bad. And I cannot say anything good about that book. And it took me so long to read because I didn't want to give up because it was part of the challenge. But it drove me mad. It was so awful. I'll never forget that book. So, so bad. The Carpet People by Terry Pratchett. And I know people are going to hate me for this because Terry Pratchett is such a well-respected author. I just couldn't get into it. I read it. I didn't understand it. But I just found it really dull. I guess I just don't really read fantasy fiction. I don't understand it. And so that's why I didn't like it. People who like Terry Pratchett may think it's absolutely amazing. But to me, I just couldn't get into it. Atmospheric Disturbances by Rivka Galchen. Again, another book from the blurb. That sounded so amazing. A guy comes home to find his wife there, or his girlfriend. I can't remember, girlfriend or wife. But he knows it isn't her, and he wants to try and find out where his real wife has gone. And again, just fell flat. Something that started off on the first couple of pages so exciting. It draws you in and it makes you want to find out what's going on. And just dull. So they're the books that I absolutely hated. And then there were books that were neither here nor there, which I won't bother listing because they don't really matter that much. But I will say that even though there were some I hated and some that were all right, I'm glad I read them all just to prove to myself that I could. Because like I say, I can spend so much time not reading that I get out of the routine and get out of the habit of doing it. And it's quite sad because there's some amazing books and there's a lot of books on that list that I never would have read if it hadn't been for this challenge. But I'm so glad I read them. So super pleased to have done that. But it was a struggle. 52 books in a year. For me, I found very, very difficult. I didn't always find the time to read because of being at work or having other things going on in my life. And especially over Christmas time, I've been so busy that I've only read one book in the past 6 weeks just because of all the other things that are going on at this time. So reading a book a week is a struggle, especially when you've got other things going on. So my friend Hannah over at Shelf Restraint and myself have joined forces to become Bookashelf. And we have put together our own list for a reading challenge next year. And this is the Bookashelf 2016 reading challenge. And Hannah has been taking part in this Pop Sugar challenge as well. And again, she didn't complete it because of various things that have been going on and just finding it too difficult to read the 52 books. So we've put together a list of 26 books, which we think is a little bit more manageable over a year, and it gives you the chance to read other things. This list, although very good, I found that I was reading books that fitted in with the list rather than books that I wanted to read myself. And working in a library, that's quite difficult because I always find things that I want to read and I bring them home and then I realise I can't read them because I don't have the time or they don't slot into the challenge. So if we take what I've done this year, 41 books, the Bookashelf reading challenge is 26 books, so that gives me however many more, because you know I can't maths, books to read on top of that. So I can read a lot more of what I would choose to read rather than just things that fit in with the challenge. I want to do a challenge because I did enjoy it, but 26 books, like I say, it's a little bit more manageable and I'll be able to eat those quite easily and not feel like it's becoming a chore. I will say that this challenge this year, I got fed up by the end. I knew I wasn't going to complete it and I was just reading things, going through the motions, and I didn't enjoy that. And reading should be fun. So this year, not this year, next year, because we're still in 2015, just for a little bit longer. Next year, I'm going to be reading the 26 books from the list, plus others that I want to read. So I'm looking forward to it, especially as Hannah and I have put together the list, so we kind of could choose things that we wanted. But I will put a link to the file down below, so that if you want to join in with the challenge, you can, and you can print off this lovely picture that has been drawn by Hannah, bless her. That's a picture of Hannah there, she's drawn. And that's a picture of me. And here's our challenge. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to reading more things. And obviously I will carry on putting up my reviews so you can see what I've been doing. And yeah, I hope your 2015 has been good, and that you will be reading a lot more in 2016. So have a good day, have a good new year, and I will see you next year. Bye bye.